Hey, how you doing? Today, Subway. I got a oven roasted turkey sub. It's a foot long sub, but I probably won't eat the whole thing. But let's see what it looks like. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll be saving that part for later. Yeah. Yeah. Not bad at all looking. I got some cucumbers. I got lettuce and tomato. And I like mayonnaise on turkey subs, so I got mayonnaise on there. A little bit of that American cheese. Should be good. Mmm. 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 Couple of my chips I got out of the cabinet too. I like chips with my sub. And some iced tea. That turkey's not bad. So I was thinking today, as I was going through the kitchen, about the last time I had to defrost my freezer. Not so much anymore today. I know back in the 70s, I always had to defrost the freezer. But now they're automatic. You used to always have to defrost them. Which of course meant pull everything out of the freezer. And even when you defrosted the freezers, water would run down across all the shelves. So we would get everything out of the refrigerator as well. Mm. You would always have buckets and sponges, and the water would run onto the floor. You would have towels there. Yeah, it was usually a messy job. but you didn't have a choice. I mean, that ice would just build up inside the little freezer compartment to the point where you almost couldn't get anything else in there. And you knew at that point, oh, it's time to defrost it. I know even when I was a young kid, the refrigerators were pretty archaic. Like the sides and the door of the refrigerator were like at least 3 inches thick. And we had this big rounded metal refrigerator, which I found out later on. They were very heavy too, because if you ever had to move one of those behemoths, it was like huge. And the mechanical parts back in the early years were big and bulky, and we didn't have the materials that we have today to make these lightweight refrigerators that are real energy efficient. These things were massive. And like I say, the walls of them was so thick, like 3 inches thick, because the insulating materials weren't as good back then either. They were huge. It had a huge metal handle, and at one point, it was a single door. It was really big, and it had this huge metal handle that you would have to pull down, and it had a latching mechanism inside it. Everything today just has like a magnetic closure on it. It's not like it used to be. I think a lot of it too was for safety reasons, because there was no way to open them from the inside. But that handle was so hard to pull that when we were young kids, one, you weren't tall enough to get a hold of the handle good, and you couldn't pull it hard enough to get the refrigerator door to open. Yeah. So you had to get your parents to open it all the time. So. But the defrosting part of those was really bad. And I'm guessing you probably had to defrost them like maybe once a month or maybe a little bit longer. But it was quite a task to do that. But it was an undertaking, like I say, with the buckets. We would try to get the huge hunks of ice. Like once it started to defrost a certain amount, you would try to get the bigger hunks of ice out of the freezer compartment so that you could like throw them in the sink, because otherwise all that is going to add more water running down onto your floor and stuff, which was already a mess. But part of the fun would be trying to get the hugest hunks of ice out of the freezer thing so you could throw them in the sink. And in the early days, too, I remember the big glass bottles of milk that would come from the milkman. They would deliver the milk to the house. And the milkman would deliver these things, and they were the big, thick glass bottles with like aluminum, tin, metal looking lids that you would pop off, But each week, the milkman would come and let the milk there in the milk box. Metal looking box about a foot or a little more than a foot square. And it would be sitting up on the front porch with the lid on it, so that you could open the lid usually against the house wall. So you'd have that thing sitting on the porch. Open that up. You would get the milk bottles and stuff out of there and take them in the house and put them in your gigantic white refrigerator. In that milk box, it was like a galvanized metal looking box. And I remember it would have the name of the dairy because the milk was delivered by the dairy. So in your town, you might have like USA Dairies or something like that, or Green's Dairy. They would have their name printed on the milk box, probably partially for advertising and stuff too, because then the other people in the street would see, oh yeah, they've got that Green's Dairy delivering their milk, and that guy goes to like 10 or 20 different houses on this street, must be pretty reliable. And the milkman would show up in his little white milk truck that had the name of the dairy printed on the side of the truck. And he would have a wire cage that he would carry the bottles and stuff in. And he would come up across the sidewalk there, and you could hear the glass bottles, clinking a little bit in his metal cage, and he'd come up across the sidewalk and put this week's milk delivery in the box there. And he would normally, I think, try to get there in the morning. That way, that if it was summertime especially, then the heat of the sun wasn't beating down on the milk box, trying to make the milk hot and go bad. But it wasn't just the milk that he would deliver too. You could get cream and butter and other stuff too left there in your milk box. He would deliver all that stuff because it's a dairy, so they made all that. And you would have a little checklist, what you wanted to get delivered for the next week and stuff. So you would have that little checklist thing, or sometimes it would even be printed envelopes. Because you would also then put the money in the envelope, to pay for the milk and stuff. And then he would take that envelope back with him to the dairy. That's how you paid the milkman for delivering the stuff. Then throughout the week, as you used up the milk and stuff, you would just rinse those bottles out and put them back in the milk box, because he would collect those to get returned to the dairy. Because you got to remember, these milk bottles were substantial. They weren't thin glass like this today. These things were sturdy milk bottles, thick glass. So he would constantly be recycling those. And I'm sure that helped keep the cost down of the milk and stuff too, because he would take the return bottles back with him. They'd go back to the dairy and they would get sterilized and filled up again. I remember sometimes too, in the summertime, and all of us kids would be playing out there in the yard or something. And we would see the milk truck coming down the road. And once in a while, we would go running in the house and tell our mom, hey, the milkman's coming, and here he is down the road. We would try to get her to agree that we could get some chocolate milk that day from the milkman. And then when he would come up there, on his truck, he had like small miniature glass bottles of chocolate milk, for the kids and stuff. And sometimes we would be able to get those, but they were shaped like milk bottles, and they were just chocolate milk. Of course, chocolate milk's a lot better than regular milk to kids. They still had the same little metal crimp lids on them as the regular size milk bottles. But my mom would take like a bottle opener and punch a hole in that metal lid, and then we could stick a straw in there, drink the chocolate milk right out of the bottle. Yeah, I don't miss those days of defrosting the freezers, though. That was always a nightmare doing that and made such a mess. It's good to have the higher tech ones today. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this meal. Hope you guys have a good time. Enjoy yourselves. Take care. See you later.